Hey, you guys. Hey. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Giving some people time to join me. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Hope you're doing amazing. Today is a phenomenal day. Hope you've had a great day today. One moment. I got a huge thing of water. So I'm trying to finish it before the night is done. But yep, happy Wednesday. Y'all make sure you drop in the comments where you joining in from. Don't belong where you don't belong. Hey, Lakeisha. Atlanta. I'll be home soon. I'll be going to visit. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. It's a surprise, but oh well. I'll be visiting soon. What's up, everybody? Listen, I will not be long tonight. I say that every week, but I'm going to really try to make it short, sweet, and simple tonight. But Columbia, Illinois, South California, Arizona, Nigeria. What's good? Everybody. So, okay, so like I said, I won't be long tonight because I'm just not. And make sure you have your pen and paper so we can get into this message, we can get into this word. For those of you that don't know, I am Samantha. I am here. I'm a business coach. I come live every Wednesday at 6:30 Central Standard Time to incorporate. I want to give you guys the word and bring in life. So I just really talk about life and I talk about God, right? And tonight's topic was just near and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about don't belong where you don't belong. Right? And so grab some pen, grab a pen, grab some paper. I always like to give tips, pointers, and strategies on how you can possibly come out of these things that tend to be holding you back. And tonight is no different. So that's why I said make sure you grab some paper, grab a pen so you can take some notes. All right? If you have questions, you can definitely drop them in the comments. I'll try to get to them. If I miss them, sorry, it's not intentional. Just maybe drop them again and I'll do my very best to get to them. All right, so let's get into it. Hold on one second. All right, so tonight we're talking about don't belong where you don't belong. And if you... Sorry about the noise in the background. But if you can read between the lines, don't let that go over your head. Like, it's all about staying in a place, in a relationship, in a situation, in something longer than you should. Whether it is an environment, around certain people, keeping certain friends in your life longer than you should, staying in a relationship longer than you should, holding on to limiting beliefs and thoughts longer than you should, like whatever it may be. Don't belong in that place. Don't belong in a place that you don't belong. All right? So lately, God has had me in a season of isolation. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I get started, so if you're not following me on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I usually go live on YouTube as well. However, I'm revamping a few things. But just make sure you follow me on YouTube. I am Samantha J. West on YouTube. Okay. And so back to the topic. Okay. So I'm almost positive we can all relate to staying in a place, staying in a situation, staying in a relationship, keeping friends around, doing things longer than we should have, longer than, holding on to something, knowing we should walk away, knowing we should let it go, knowing God has told us they ain't supposed to go forward with us, and yet we still hold on. Yet we still feel like it's something that we want to bring out of that situation or relationship or whatever, right? And I'm talking about this tonight because not only am I guilty of it in multiple ways, but God has had me in a season of isolation lately. And so, but it started from, the isolation came from me being in situations with people, typically relationships or whatnot, longer than I should have. Staying in things way longer than I should have, right? And I'll just use my last relationship as an example. So my last relationship, I was with him for 9 months, too long, okay? 9 months too long. After day one, it should have been no. However, I stayed longer than I should have. He was extremely toxic. He was hands down one of the most toxic, the most toxic relationship I've ever been in. Oh, 1 second, y'all. I'm sorry. One second. I apologize. I meant to do this from the beginning. Give me 1 second. I apologize, guys. I think I'm doing it. Okay. Then I'm going to do, I'm sorry, y'all. Hold on. Okay, so I am pinning my Cash App in case anyone wants to pour into my ministry. I would appreciate it. God has blessed me with the ministry to pour into you all. It's not free, and this work is not easy. So if anyone feels led to pour into the ministry, I drop my Cash App there. If you want to give a different way, feel free to ask, and I can put that as well. But anyway, so my talking about my past relationship. So first of all, before he and I got into a relationship, I had made my list of non-negotiables. I was like, nope, I'm good. I'm not doing XYZ no more, or whatever, right? And made my list of non-negotiables because the guy before him, I came out of, and I was just like, I'm just tired of my life being the way that it's been. I'm sick of getting the same same soul with a different face. Just over it. And so my goal at the time was to be single and just, do it God's way, right? And the devil find out what you want to do. He always come with a distraction. Always come with something that's going to make you go in a different direction and following God's way. So here comes this guy. I meet this guy, and he was just the ideal person. Or so I thought. That was a lie from hell. It was a lie. But anyway, get into, he and I started dating. We started talking, whatever. Really liked him. Needless to say, I stayed with him 9 months, whatever, right? But the reality is, I knew early on that I should have walked away. And I'm embarrassed to even tell this, but because I know that my testimony, my story helps to change other people's lives, then listen, I should have walked away when I saw that he was sleeping on an air mattress. I should have walked away, right? I should have walked away when I realized he had roaches. I should have walked away, but no. Because I was in a space of insecurity. I was coming into the space of being confident in myself and finding myself in God, but I wasn't quite there just yet, right? So I ain't walked away, and I should have walked away, right? I should have walked away, but I didn't, whatever. So we get into a relationship, we start dating, and the first time he yelled at me. I was playing with the kids one day. I'm in the living room, and he could clearly hear me playing with the kids, playing with them, whatever. and he calls my name. I didn't answer because I'm playing with the kids, and call my name again, didn't answer. So anyway, he got mad because I didn't answer, and I had seen little snippets of his temper, but didn't really pay no attention because, again, I guess I was just thirsty at the time, needy, wanting a man, rather have somebody by my side versus being by myself. Y'all know, I'm sure somebody can relate. Don't come for me. Don't judge me. I got a pass just like you. But anyway, so we ended up, he called my name. He got mad because I didn't answer him. So after, I think twice or three times, I don't know, he called my name and answered. He yelled, and I'm just like, who are you talking to? Like, who you talking to? And I finally got up and went in there or whatever and was like, what's up? Like, I was like, don't call my name like that no more. And he was like, well, you heard me call you and you didn't answer. And I was just like, but that don't mean you got to be coming for me like that. Like, and so the Sadre, I think, you requesting to be in my video. If you send a request later, I'll accept it at some point, but not right now. But anyway, he went off, and he went off on me. He got mad because I didn't answer him right away, right? And I knew at that moment that I should have walked away. If I didn't already know, I knew again that I should have walked away, right? Because it was at that moment when he started getting a little temper that I was just like, something ain't right. But yet, I chose to stay. So months go by, the temper starts coming out more and more and more. Hey, Messiah. But anyway, temper starts coming out more and more, and I still chose to stay. The thing is, when you're in situations like that, like when you don't walk away from what you know ain't right, when you don't walk initially, it doesn't get any better. It actually gets worse, right? Because people, like, when you decide to settle for something up front, they feel like, well, you settled for it, you dealt with it before, it ain't gonna, you must like it, you must be okay. So, I'm still in this relationship, and like I said, his temper was getting worse. It was getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and I'm still there. Like an idiot, I'm still there. And I mean, like, he would go from like 0 to about 100 within maybe 4 seconds, easily. Temper was just horrible. And at the time, me being insecure and just lacking confidence in myself, and just not knowing who I was, I'm like, well, I mean, the sex is good, and I'm just being real, right? Sometimes sex have you in a mind space that you don't need to be in. Sometimes the sex have you so gone that you really be like, but the sky is purple. Listen, y'all don't come for me, okay? But anyway, so I'm still in this relationship. Like I said, over time, I knew from day one that I should have walked away. From day one. And I stayed 9 months too long. Over time, I knew the temper was horrible. I knew the attitude was horrible. He had some huge baggage that he brought from just all his life into the relationship. What finally made me walk was he went off on my family. He got mad because, my family was family and he didn't have any. But he ended up going off on my family, cursing out my mom, cursing out my sisters, not to their face, but to me, and it was more like, oh, you're welcome. But it was more like, F your family, F your sister, F your mom, F your sisters, F your family, right? And it was just like straight up. And I was just like, you know what? I need to get out of this. I need to get out of this because it ain't getting no better. He ain't respecting me. At this point, it's just complete disrespect. It's just complete, like, no. So after 9 months, y'all, 9 months that I dealt with that foolishness, 9 months of my life, I stayed in that relationship way longer than I should have. Way longer. And after 9 months, I finally walked away. I stayed too long where I did not belong. And we can all have a story on here. I'm 100% positive. We all have a story where either we can relate to what I just said, or something similar to what I said, or you've been in, like I said, friendships too long. You've had people in your life that you know. They was your friends in high school, they was your friends in college, but now y'all kind of on different paths, but yet you still holding on to them. Yet they still holding on to you. Yet you still in this relationship when you know God told you to walk away from it. You know that you need to maybe distance yourself from some people in your family. You know it. But yet, for some reason, you're still choosing to stay in those relationships, those situationships, those environments. Even your environment can be extremely toxic, and you're choosing to stay in those relationships and situations longer than you should have. No matter what's keeping you there, you're choosing to stay there. And we've all been there before. And like I was saying, God has had me in a season of isolation. I'm trying to read y'all's comments. Hold on. Child, listen. One Shine 330. Listen, I don't even know if he was dollar store worthy. I totally got a cheap thrill. That was years ago. Okay, that was my last relationships. But thank you so much. But anyway, so I'm sorry. I was trying to keep up with your comments, but we're gonna keep it going because I'm not gonna be here long. But like I said, no matter what has kept you in those situations, no matter what's kept you in those relationships, no matter what keeps you holding on to these friendships after God has told you to let those people go, no matter what it is that keeps you in these environments, at the end of the day, we all can relate and say we have been in that space before, right? I'm almost positive everybody on this live can relate. Everybody can relate, right? So lately, God has had me in a season of isolation. And I told all of that story because that actually led me to my season of isolation. This was 2019. So I've been, single since, and I'm good. I'm happy, because when I gave my life over to God, it was after that relationship that I was just like, no. Like, this ain't it. I don't ever want to attract this again. I don't ever want to be attracted to this again. I don't ever want something like this in my life ever again. So God, whatever work you need to do in me, whatever needs to be done, I do not care. Do it. Fix it. Make it right. Because I never want that experience or anything close to it ever again. So at that point, I truly just got right and stopped looking left, because I was just like, I'm tired of doing it my way. My way was not working for me. And so I was like, let me do it God's way. And that's when I finally just said, you know what? Let me go the straight and narrow path. Let me go the straight and narrow path, because I believe God knows better than me. Let me give him a chance. And so that situation led me to where I am. Even though it was years ago, it led me to be in a space of isolation now, today. Because I chose to walk away from certain things, certain people, certain environments, because I wanted to grow in my relationship with God. And God chose to put me in a space, hide me, so to speak, keep me away from certain things, people, and environments, so that I could be in a season of isolation. And he placed me in this season. Like right now, he has me in a season of isolation. So if you don't know, I moved to Wisconsin last year. Not even last year. Yeah, it was last year because it's 23 but now, right? So in October last year, January last year, God called me and told me that I was moving to Wisconsin. I heard it like a drum. It was like Wisconsin, like in my head, constantly. And I was just like, okay, what's going on in Wisconsin, God? And I heard Wisconsin church, Wisconsin church, Wisconsin. And I was just like, am I being called to Wisconsin? Am I building a church? Like, what is going on? And long story short, I was called in January last year. I knew I was told that I would be moving to Wisconsin, and I knew the area I was to be moving to, and I knew like I was coming to help build a church and a ministry, right? And I got here, started helping build the ministry. Things didn't necessarily turn out the way I thought they should have, or whatever. But with the ministry, I was doing the work, but I was doing all of the work. And that's not what God called me to do. Like, I was called to help someone build a ministry and a church. So anyway, long story short, God ends up putting me on a new path, because if you know God, then you know he will definitely change your path. He will change your direction. He don't necessarily change his mind, but he put you on a new path to make happen what he has put you on this earth to do. So he put me on a new direction, a new path, because at the end of the day, he's like, you're still going to do what I told you to do. However, we're going to go about it a different way. We're going to go a different direction, right? So it puts me on a new direction, and in the direction that he has me on now, he's put me in a season of isolation. And I didn't realize that. So someone told me maybe in February, I'm lying, I forget. It was earlier this year. Someone told me, like, I really believe God sent you to Wisconsin for you to be isolated. And I was like, you know what? I believe that too. I believed it. I heard it, but I was just like, I wasn't really diving into it at the time, right? And then, a couple of weeks later, maybe even a month or whatever, someone else said the same thing. Like, I truly believe God put you in a season of isolation. You're supposed to be isolated right now. I was just like, yeah, I believe it. And then, but again, didn't really dive into it. And so one day I'm driving down the street, and I was just like, I don't know. It was just like, Holy Spirit, I'm here to be isolated. Like, God put me on the path to come help build the ministry. However, that didn't necessarily pan out. And he put me on another path. He's like, okay, you're going to still build a ministry, but you're going to build your own, not help someone else right now. So it's like I'm my own assignment at this moment. And he's put me in a space of isolation. It came to me. That's what I was saying. Like, the Holy Spirit literally, like, it just dropped on me one day. And I was like, I believe I'm here because I'm isolated. I believe, God, you got me here to remove me from everything and everybody. The lady, I didn't leave the ministry. That ministry that I was working to help build, I was doing all of the work. If you didn't catch it, I was doing all of the work. I wasn't called to do all of the work. I'm never going to allow anyone to take my peace. I'm never going to do more work than you're doing for yourself. And I'm never going to want something more for you than you want for yourself, ever. And I was doing all three of those. And I felt uncomfortable in my soul and in my spirit. And I knew when my peace started being disturbed, I knew something was not right. Because even though sometimes, yes, God puts us on a path, and it may come with a little, frustration, because you don't necessarily know your steps. However, when you know it's God, you have a peace behind it. And I had the peace until I didn't have it anymore. And I started to, like I said, just someone right. And I knew like it was just time for me to go in a different direction. And that's why. But I left doing that ministry. I'm building my own ministry now. So follow my story. All right. So anyway, God puts me in this place of isolation, right? And so I finally said, I believe you got me isolated, God. I believe you brought me up here to isolate me, to get me away from certain things, to get me away from certain people, to get me away from certain family members, to get me away from certain environments that I was in. Like, and I was just, used to certain things. It was just like I was living like a monotonous life, and it was the same thing over and over. You may go a different route, but you see the same thing. You see the same thing. And like I grew up in Atlanta, and all I knew was Atlanta, right? I'm from the south side of Atlanta, and I stayed on the south side. Like, I didn't do much on the north side. I didn't know much about the north side. I didn't know much about the east side. I would go to those places sometimes, but not all the time. I knew the south side. I knew what I knew, and I was in my comfort zone. Thank you, Holy Spirit. I was completely comfortable in where I was. And so I knew I needed to get away from certain people, certain things. And, like I said, even my family, autopilot, exactly. But even my family, I needed to get away from. And then when I finally embraced God, the isolation that God has me in right now, I realized that I also needed to get away from my environment. My environment that I grew up in wasn't bad at all. It was it wasn't bad at all. It was just, that's all I knew. It was like God is it is that God is expanding me so much, and expanding my mind so much, and expanding just everything about who I am, so that I could become who I'm supposed to be. And so I had to get out of certain environments. I had to get from around certain people. I had to stop doing certain things. I had to, so that I could elevate and so that I could grow. And so God put me in this season of isolation so that I could actually go higher and further in life, right? And in this season, when I finally started embracing it, I finally realized how much I've grown. In this season, we tend to look at isolation as lonely, a period of, like I said, loneliness. You tend to look at it as a negative, right? You look at it as a negative because it is taking you away from your comfort zone. It takes you away from what you know. It takes you away from the people. It takes you away from the things, the environments, everything that you're used to, everything that you know. God isolates you from it. And so it's a difficult season. It's very, very, very difficult. But when you embrace it and you start to realize, God is really teaching me something in this isolation. It's very revealing, and it helps you really to grow as a person. And I started to realize, like, I've really become who God has called me to be. I'm walking fully in my ministry. I'm building it. It's growing. And, I've grown in discernment. I've grown in wisdom. I've grown in confidence. I've grown in boldness. I've grown in the discerning of spirits. I've grown in hearing God's voice clearly. I've grown in clarity. I have grown in, like you name it, in faith. I have grown in obedience. I have grown like in basically, I don't want to say every area, but a lot of areas of my life. But had I not become isolated, had I stayed in the place where I was, continued to stay in those places too long, which I was there too long, staying somewhere too long where I didn't belong, then I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have grown into who I am today. I wouldn't be embracing the woman that God has called me to be. Right? And so I named this live, Don't Belong Where You Don't Belong. Because God is always having us grow. He's always wanting us to move. People always say, I'm waiting on God. I'm waiting on God. I'm waiting on God. And it's like, really, God is waiting on you. God is waiting on you to move. God is waiting on you to take the first step. God is waiting on you to follow his direction. God is waiting on you to do what he told you to do. He's waiting on you. But we tend to stay in places, things, environments, situations, whatever, too long. We are in those places and spaces longer than we're supposed to be. And what happens is we end up delaying and hindering our blessings. We end up delaying and hindering our blessings. And you wonder why God not answering. You wonder why you're not hearing God's voice. You're wondering why, things are going left. Because God told you to go right. But you didn't listen. You didn't listen because you really want to stay where you are. You want to stay because if you didn't, and I say you want to, because if you didn't, you would make a choice to do something different. You would come out of where you are because you've been in that space too long, and you would come out of that space because you know you don't belong. But you want to stay. So let's look at scripture, right? I always make sure I tie in everything I say with the word, so you all know, like, really life. The word is life. Like, it will feed your soul, literally, right? And I always like to make sure I bring script. I let you guys know that this is biblical. Like, I'm not just talking. I'm not just telling you my story because I don't have nothing else to do. I'm actually giving you, it's scripture. It's just written a different way in scripture. But I like to give it to you in layman terms so we can all be on one accord. We can all understand, because some people, I may be your only Bible. I may be your only word for today. And that's not okay. But for right now, we'll say, okay, that's what it is, right? So I like to break it down so that you all will know that, we can, like I said, we can be on one accord. We can know what the word is saying. And so we're going to take it to the scripture. Genesis chapter. Hold on, y'all. My computer is going out. All right. Genesis chapter 46, verses 1 through 30. Of course, we're not going to read the whole thing, but I will give you a synopsis. Let me turn to it. Hold on one second. All right, I'm going to give you a synopsis so you'll know, what it's about and where we at. So Jacob, if you don't know the word, okay, so Jacob was a child born to, don't tell me, I forget his dad's name. But anyway, he was born and his brothers didn't like him. So they actually, because he was favored by his father. So his brothers didn't like him because he was favored and favored by God. And they tried to, they made a plan to kill him. And then someone came to him and said, listen, don't kill him. The blood will be on your hands. But why don't you just sell him, whatever. So they end up selling him into slavery. So Jacob, because he was favored, he's a slave in Egypt. He ends up going to Egypt, and he's favored. He's favored by the king. He's favored by everybody because God's favor was on him. And so he ends up being like the king's right-hand person, right? So here we are in Genesis 46, where it's a famine in Egypt. It's a famine in the land, and Jacob has the food and the supply and things that people need. And so his brothers, his dad actually thought he was dead, but his dad actually sends his brothers. Nobody knew he was in Egypt because his brothers, they knew they sold him into slavery, but they didn't know, he was still alive. They didn't know anything. His dad, they went and told his dad, they went and told their dad that he died. So the dad thought he was dead, right? So here it is. The dad sends the brothers to Egypt to get some, to sell some things so they can get food and water and whatnot, right? Supplies, because it was a famine in the land. And so they go, approach Jacob, not knowing that that's their brother. And it wasn't revealed to them at first. And then it was, Jacob told them, like, I'm your brother, right? Exactly. They needed him. And so, but he's like, I'm your brother. And so, they're like, oh my God, whatever. So they go back home, tell their dad what they had done. And Jacob tells them, listen, go back, get your daddy, and y'all all come to Egypt. So he basically moving them there so he can take care of them and, make sure they're good. So in Genesis 46, chapter chapter 46 verses 1 through 30 is where we at, right? So I just gave y'all a brief synopsis, real quick, real fast, over Genesis, Jacob in Genesis, not all of Genesis. But anyway, so this is where he's telling his family to move down to Egypt because so they can be taken care of, right? And so his dad went. His daddy was like, all right, well, let's pack up. Joseph, thank you. But daddy was like, let's pack up, let's go. His daddy wanted to see his son, and he was like, let's go. Jacob had promised them, a land, a goodness over in Egypt. So his dad was like, all right, we're going to pack up, we're going. And he starts, they start going towards Egypt. And, okay, hold on. But because he knew, like he was listening to his son to go, but he ended up staying in a space. He ended up stopping in Beersheba. I'm probably saying it wrong. He ended up stopping in Beersheba because he wanted to seek the Lord. He wanted to seek the Lord first before he moved on to Egypt. Even though he wanted to see his son, he didn't seek God first. So he ended up stopping so that he could get God's guidance as to how he should proceed. And side note, that's why sometimes our lives go on a different path, because we don't seek God first. We don't put God first. We don't go to God first and allow him to guide us in and out of these situations that we get in, and we stay in them longer than we should have. So he ends up staying in Beersheba longer because of the simple fact he was seeking God's permission. That's the only reason he stayed longer. So he stayed in a place longer, but notice why he stayed longer. So I'm not saying it's necessarily good for you to stay in a place longer than you should. If you ask God up front, then you might just not be in the place as long as you might not be there longer if you ask him for guidance and wisdom up front, right? But he ended up staying in this place longer because he wanted to seek God's guidance. He wanted to seek God's guidance before he moved forward. And he actually stayed there before actually moving towards his promise. Okay? And so we tend to think God taking too long. We think God is taking too long. We don't want to wait on his promise. We don't want to wait on his answers. We don't want to wait on permission. We don't want to wait on, whatever, right? We don't want to wait. So we end up asking, but yet we're like, no, God taking too long. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to just stay here because God ain't answering me. I'm going to just stick in this place because God not listening. I feel like he want me to stay because he ain't answered me yet. So let me stay. But the reality is God did answer you. God did answer you. You ain't listening. You ain't listening. Okay? But this one, in this case, in biblical, he was listening. He was waiting. He was willing to wait to get God's answers and God's direction before he moved forward. So he only stayed there, stayed long in a place he didn't necessarily belong for God's guidance. So when you are seeking God's face and seeking God's wisdom and seeking his guidance and genuinely waiting on him to answer, it's possible you may stay in a place a little longer. But that's only because you're seeking his guidance, right? Hold on, y'all. Sorry, something in my eye. But he took the time to wait on God's blessings, wait on God's go forth before he moved forward. Okay? He made sacrifices in this place because he was willing to give up what he wanted. Y'all hear me? He was willing to give up what he wanted. He wanted to go see his son. He hadn't seen him in 20-something years and wanted to see his son. But he was willing to give up what he wanted and willing to stay in a place to get God's answers. But we don't want to give up what we want. So we stay in a place too long because we want to continue to hold on to what we want. We want to hold on to what we want, right? But anyway, so I said all that to say, like, even with the Israelites, when you look at the story of Moses bringing them out of Egypt, and they stayed in the wilderness too long. Being long where they didn't belong. God wanted them out of the wilderness. Had they listened, sought God, and not complained, then they would have gotten out of the wilderness in 11 days. They stayed there for 40 years because they weren't listening. They didn't seek God first, and therefore they ended up too long where they didn't belong. So we all do the same thing. We all do the same thing. I want you to sit and think right now, like, what are you holding on to? What situation? What relationship? What friendship? What thoughts? What old thought patterns? What are you holding on to that you need to let go of? Some of the stuff that you're holding on to is holding you back. You're staying in a place too long that you don't belong. You're staying in a place too long that you don't belong. And sometimes we hardly consider God's purpose for our lives. We hardly consider God's purpose for our lives. We stay in these situations longer than we should because we're not seeking God. We're not wanting to hear what God has to say. We're not listening to what he has to say. And we stay. We stay because we rather, like I just said, we would rather have what we want versus what God wants for us. So you sit up and stay in a place or thing, environment, whatever, longer than you should. Because when you start praying certain things and people out of your life, God answers. But we don't want him to remove certain things in people. So like I said, think about what it is that you are holding on to. People, things, relationships, friendships, even family, environments. What are you holding on to that you need to let go of, that you have been holding on too long and it's holding you back? It's hindering you, it's blocking your blessings. What are you holding on to that God told you to let go of? It's holding you back. Okay? There are times when, God wants us to move, but as a result, we find ourselves staying in these places, situations, relationships, longer than we should because we end up being disobedient because we don't want to move when God say move. We don't want to let go of the attachment. We have friends that have been in our lives for years. And because we feel like they're supposed to be in our lives, I can't let my friend go. Even though your friend may not be helping you, may not be basically holding you back, basically helping you stay stagnant. And you steady holding on to that. I really want you to write that down. Like, what am I holding on to? Who am I holding on to longer than I should? I remember when I came out of a relationship with my child's father. Listen, I ain't been in that many relationships, but I came out of a relationship with my child's father, and we actually used to live together. Your girl used to live in sin, okay? But anyway, came out of a relationship with him, and he had actually furnished my house. He put like TVs and sofas, rugs. He put a lot of stuff in the house, right? And I remember when, it was time for him to go, I actually was trying to hold on. I actually stayed in that way longer than I should have. And I held on because I had a kid. I am, a second-time mom, didn't want to be a single mom again, and was holding on because I'm like, okay, well, it'll be good for the kid. You know, the excuses we make when we trying to hold on to a relationship that God tell us to get out of. But anyway, you know, I'm like, okay, it'll be good for the kid, whatever. He helping with the bills, he helping pay the mortgage, whatever. And anyway, when the time came, it was like, okay, you gotta go. Like, this ain't working. When the time came for him to go, it was like, all right, he gotta go, right? So, but I held on to, as small as you may think it is, I held on to like the furniture. I held on to the furniture. I mean, because, yeah, I mean, of course, you know, it was, my whole house was furnished, but at the end of the day, I could have gotten more furniture. But I held on to the furniture. I held on to the different things that he brought into the house, and then didn't get rid of them. And I remember God speaking to me very clearly, like, you need to cleanse your house. You need to get rid of all of this stuff that was attaching you to him. And I was like, but then I got to buy more furniture. You know, when God tell us something and we always like, but God, if I do that, then I ain't gonna have no furniture. If I do that, I ain't gonna have no friends. If I do that, I ain't gonna have no boyfriend. If I do that, I ain't gonna have... Come on. Don't make me feel like I'm out here by myself. Because y'all, you know. So anyway, God tells me you need to get rid of this furniture because it you have a connection to it. It's something there, right? So eventually, I finally got rid of the furniture. And when I did, y'all, I packed it up and it was just like a cleansing. And I didn't even think of it that way. I didn't even know that I had that kind of attachment. You know what I'm saying? To this furniture. And realized at that time that I was holding on to it because I was holding on to some part and piece of him. Holding on to some part and piece of our relationship. So I wanted to hold on to that furniture. I held on longer than I should have. And it's like I said, you don't even think about it because it's furniture. You don't think about it until you get into a space where you're getting rid of it. And when I started getting rid of it, I was just like, I felt like a heaviness came off of me. Like a burden was lifted. I'm going to tell you one more thing before I go into, how you know when it's time for you to move forward, right? But I'm going to tell you one more thing. I used to be married. I was married to my oldest child's father. And when he and I got a divorce, another relationship that I held on to longer than I should have. But when he and I separated, I actually did not go right and get this divorce. I had to pay for it out of my pocket. At the time, I didn't have the money, whatever. It may sound like an excuse, but that's legit the truth. I didn't have the money, so I wasn't holding on to him or that relationship at all. But let me tell you, so when we finally got a divorce, the judge asked me, like, do you want to switch your name back? And so when I was married, my name was Douglas. Last name was Douglas. And the judge was like, well, do you want to switch your last name back? And I was just like, no, I'm good because all of my daughter's information was in that last name. All of my stuff had been transferred to that last name. So I was just like, no, like that's just too much. It's too much work, whatever. So I just kept the last name, Douglas, and held on to the name Douglas for years. We talking about years. I legit would have still had that last name had God told me not to get rid of it. I mean, had God not told me to get rid of it. Kept the last name for years. Didn't think nothing about it. You think these things are minute, right? You think they're small, but you don't realize how much of an attachment you have to certain things until you walk away from those things, until you allow those things to go, until you allow yourself to give them away or move away from it or allow God to remove them from you, right? Kept the last name, I'm walking around, and right before I came to Wisconsin, God said, I need you to clean up your last name. I want you to remove that last name from you, period. And I was just like, I ain't really understand, but I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm gonna do what you tell me to do, God. I don't get it. I might not get it till you tell me later on in the thing, but do it. So I was like, all right. So he said, you need to get rid of that last name. That last name is holding you back. And I was just like, I ain't get it. I really didn't. And I actually hesitated because I was just like, it's just a name, And then I was just like, well, let me do what God said, right? So I finally got in. God says, I want you like everything. I want all your credit cards out of that name. I want your bank account to be switched. I want like your driver's license switched, your social security, your birth certificate, everything. Well, birth certificate, that we know that ain't. I'm sorry, that I ain't mean to say birth certificate, but social security, all of that, right? And so I started the process of switching everything up, passport, everything. And as I was doing it, I started feeling like freedom. Like it was like a tie that had me connected to that person, right? And you think it's just a last name. You think it's just furniture. You think it's minute. You think it's small. But I started switching up all my stuff, my driver's license, everything. And when I did it, I felt so free. I felt so free. And when everything finally got switched over, I was just like, wow. Like I didn't even know I had been holding on to that last name unintentionally, of course, but holding on to that last name too long and staying in a place longer than I should have. Staying in a relationship mentally, a chain that had me bound to somebody else longer than I should have been. Didn't even realize it until I got rid of that last name though, right? And switched everything over. And I felt such a freedom. And God told me, he said, everything that was of you was attached to that last name. Your life, your social security was attached to that last name. Your money, your bank account was attached to that last name. Your relationships were attached to that last name. Like everything of you was attached to that last name. And you wondering why your relationship's going left. You wondering why your money looking funny. You wondering why your life ain't looking like I promised you it would. Because you had this attachment to something. You held on to something too long. Longer than you should have. Staying attached to something. Being attached longer than I should have. Staying too long where I didn't belong. I stayed connected to a last name. And like I said, you think it's something so small, like a last name. You think it's something like, oh, it's a friendship. I've been friends with this person for 25 years. They should always go forward with me. We're going to die together. That's my ride or die. And really, they're killing your soul the longer you keep holding on to them. You're holding on to these relationships that's dragging you down. Pulling you down, ain't helping you grow. They ain't help you doing more to help them grow than they helping you grow. And yet you still holding on. You still holding on. Y'all don't even realize how much this stuff attaches to you and holds you down. Literally hindering your blessings, blocking your blessings. God will stop. God will block some of your blessings or withhold some of your blessings until you get out of situations, relationships, environments, friendships, until you get out of certain things, being in a place too long where you don't belong. So how is it that you know when it's time, when God says to move or you need to stay? This is where you need your paper, right? Because I'm finna give y'all some quick pointers, quick tips. Write them down. Let's make it happen, right? So how is it, do you know? How do you know when God's telling you that you need to move or you need to be still? Stay in that space. Number one, you start getting a new interest or your passions are changing. You start getting a new interest and your passions are changing, right? You know when it's time for a new season. Excuse me, I'm sorry, y'all. You know when it's time for you to enter into a new chapter and a new season when your interests about certain things start to change. When you start, like, let's use friendship, for example, right? When you start to outgrow certain things that you used to do with your friends, when you start to outgrow certain conversations that you used to have with your friends, even family. I remember when I told my sisters, one of my sisters was like, you don't really talk to us much. And I was like, well, we talk. I was like, but y'all don't really talk about nothing like that I want to talk about. And I'm not even being funny. It's just like, I just don't have the mental capacity for small talk. I just don't. Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't care. I don't want to sit up and talk about TV because I don't watch TV. I don't want to sit up and talk about ratchetness. I don't want to talk about toxicity. I don't want to talk about negativity. I don't want to hear why you don't like your job every day. I don't want to hear you in the relationship problems every single day. I don't want to hear it. I don't even allow my mind to absorb it because I don't want to hear it. So I told my sister, I'm like, well, y'all just have a lot of small talk. Like, you don't talk about, like, I want to talk about God. I want to talk about growth. I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about how we gonna build. Let's get it. Like, I ain't sitting up trying to talk about this stuff that don't matter. And so I'm saying all that to say, when your interests start to change, when you start to see, like, you have a different passion and a desire to do and talk about other things. You start to know that, maybe my time here is up. Maybe my time here is up. Maybe I don't need to hold on to this no more because I can feel my spirit shifting in another direction. Stuff is not as enjoyable to you anymore. I used to watch ratchet TV. I used to talk about it. I used to gossip all the time. I used to smoke, drink, sex, all of that. And talked about it, laughed about it, had fun about it, and all of that and above. And I knew when God started shifting me, I started coming out of those type conversations. I didn't want to be around certain people anymore. I didn't want to do certain things anymore. And yeah, people gonna look at you funny. People gonna think you trying to act better than them. And at the end of the day, you really are. So keep it moving, right? But that's when you start to know. You start becoming interested in different things. You start becoming interested in different things. You become interested in you have like vision. You start to see different things for yourself. You have a vision, right? You might, I don't know, you might get another job or something that takes you in another direction, and you just start to kind of just distance yourself from things, environments, people that's been holding you back. So you start to get new interests, you start to get new passions, right? And you want to continue to pursue those interests. You want to continue to pursue those passions. You don't want to go back into what you used to do. You want to do things differently. Okay? So that's number one. You start to get new interests and passions, and you feel it. You feel it strongly. Keep going. Let me check into this. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing, but I really like the way I feel. I like the way my soul feels. I like the way my spirit feels. I like the way this person made me feel inside. I like the way they talk to me. I like the way they encourage me. I like the way they inspire me. I really like accomplishing my goals. Then you start to realize you were around certain people that was holding you back. Being in a place too long where you don't belong. Another way you can tell when it's time to move forward or if you should stay is when God starts to speak to you differently. When God starts to speak to you in a different way. Right? Hold on one second. I have Isaiah written down. Isaiah. And I gotta find it in my Bible. Y'all. Hold on. Okay. I have Isaiah written down. Isaiah 43 and 19. So let's find it. Okay, so Isaiah 43 and 19. So God starts speaking to you in a new way. In Isaiah 43, 19, it says, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Do you not get it? Do you not see what I'm doing in you? I'm doing a new thing in you. Do you not get it? I'm making a way for you in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. That's what God is doing for you. When he starts to pull you away from certain things and environments and people, whatever, he is speaking to you in a new way. He's opening up a new avenue for you. So instead of you looking at your season of isolation as a negative, start looking at it from a positive standpoint, where you say, okay, God is doing a new thing in me. God is doing something new in me. Can you not perceive it? Can you not see what he's doing? He wants you to see what he's doing. Can you not perceive it? Right? And that'll help you to start looking at things differently. Right? So when you know God starts speaking to you differently, you can hear his voice clearer. You start understanding what he's saying. You start diving more into him. You're diving more into his word. You're thirsting more for him. You're desiring that change more and more and more. You may not see it at first, but you start to realize how God is speaking to you. Like sometimes I hear a lot of people say they don't hear God. But when God is shifting you and is telling you to move forward and let certain things go, things start to become clearer. You start to hear him more clearly. You start getting clarity. You start just having eyes you start seeing things the way God sees things. That's how you know he's calling you forward. That's how you know he's calling you out of a place so that you can go forward into new things. He says, I'm doing a new thing. Can you not see it? I'm doing a new thing in you. Can you not see it? Right? So he starts speaking to you differently. Okay? And so your dreams may become more vivid. Your visions may become more vivid. You start to hear him in a different way. And that's how you start to know, like, I think it's time for me to possibly move forward because I'm seeing things, I'm hearing things, it's just becoming clear. This fuzziness I had around me, I'm starting to see through it now. Maybe I'm supposed to keep going so I can keep getting past the haze, so I can keep getting past the fog. Come out of this space, this place, this environment, these people that I've been around too long, so I can keep hearing God's voice clearly. So I can keep walking in the way God wants me to walk. You start hearing God clearer, right? Yeah. So, all right, the third thing. So how you know if God is telling you to move or to stay. The third thing is your friendships and relationships start to shift. These are all kind of interrelated, but we're going to touch on them. Your friendships and relationships start to shift. In the Bible, in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it says there's a time and a place for everything, right? I'm trying to find it because I want to make sure I give y'all the right verse. But there's a time and a place for everything, a time to laugh, time to smile, time. I'm probably not quoting it verbatim, and I'm not finding it right now, but I know it is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. Okay, here it is. But it's a time and a place for everything. It's not verse 1. I lied. What verse is it, y'all? Oh, it's chapter 3. Yeah, it is. Okay. Chapter 3, verse 1. So I was right. Yeah. So it's a time for everything. A season for everything. So you're going to outgrow people. Is my point, right? Your friendships and relationships start to shift. You're going to outgrow people. When God is calling you to move forward, God is calling you out of a place, your friendships start to change. Your relationships start to change. The way you look at relationships start to change. Listen, I told y'all when I first got on about my last relationship. When I tell you the person of who I am today, I would never, ever, they say never, but listen, I would never, date people like that again. Ever. Ever today. Like, you wouldn't even have access to me at all. Even some of the friends I used to have when I was living in the world. Never. I would never be their friends today. Ever. Ever. So my friendships and my relationships and my thoughts about friendships and relationships started to shift. That's another way I knew it was time. God was calling me out of a certain place. It was the season was up. Their season was up. We hold on to friendships and relationships longer than we should because it's comfortable. It makes us feel good to be laying next to something versus nothing. It does something to your flesh. It ain't necessarily feeding your soul, but it does something to your flesh. And in your friendships, I've been friends with them for 25, 26, whatever years. And I keep saying that because my last best friend, we were friends for 25, 26 years. And God told me she cannot go with you forward into this next season. I didn't understand it. I did not get it. All I knew was I needed to be obedient. All I knew was I needed to be obedient. Best friend, 26 years. And when our friendship ended up coming to an end, because God told me to. God told me to challenge her. And to, she told me she wanted to walk in God. One second. So sorry. I was so thirsty. But she told me she wanted to build her relationship with God. And I'm like, all right, bet. Anytime you tell me you want to grow in your relationship with God, you want to grow as a person, listen, let's get it. Like, I'm all for it. I'm going to help you get there. Trust and believe that. I'm going to push you. I'm going to motivate you. I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to inspire you. Let's go. So God told me to challenge her. And when I did, she got mad because, I challenged her to do what she said she wanted to do. And she didn't like it, so we stopped being friends. Long story short, right? Friend, 20-some years. And I never thought for my life that I would stop being her friend. I knew for a fact we were gonna die together. Not die together, but like we had planned out, if I die before you, this is what you need to do for my funeral. This how I want to die. I want you to do this. We had planned it out. Never in a million years did I think that she wouldn't be my friend. And now looking back, I'm just like, I see what God did. Because had she still been my friend, she would have spoke these things into my ears. Because she lived full of fear. But I loved her, you know what I'm saying? She was full of fear. And here I am taking these huge steps of faith. I'm walking in God. I'm not just talking the talk. I literally live my life to please God. And I ain't allowing fear to hold me back no more. I don't allow those doubts to creep into my mind. I don't allow, all this stuff to get into my head and make me stay stagnant. I push past it. But she, 100%, lives her life in fear. She lives her life in fear, and she would have 1,000% would have talked that fear into my ears. Especially when God told me to move to Wisconsin. That's just one of the times. And with my big faith, I got radical faith. Like, radical. It's big. And I know I would have listened. I would have heard it. I probably would have still followed God. But at the end of the day, I know that would have gotten in my head. I know it would have gotten in my ears. And that's just a small example. So that friendship had to go. I was in it too long. We were friends from college. And from college, and most friendships and relationships, 9 times out of 10, when you be honest with yourself, you end up trauma bonding with people. You bond over certain things, and once you come out of those traumas, which is what started happening for me, I started coming out of certain mindsets and certain traumas and certain hurt and pain. We weren't bonding as much anymore. Your friendships and relationships start to shift. God starts to, when it's time for a new chapter, you see the company that you keep start to change. You see the company that you keep start to change. And God weeds people out of our lives that are not beneficial to us. But we only see it in the eyes of the flesh. We only see it in the world. We see it from the world standpoint. Like I just said, like, but God, like, that's my best friend. We hold on, but God, that's my man. But God, that's my girl. that's wifey to be. That's my husband to be. And God is like, no, he really not. No, she really not. They really need to go. But we see it from that standpoint. And God is only like, listen, they're not going to help you grow in your future. They're not meant to go forward with you. They're not beneficial to who I want you to become. Not who you are, but who you are becoming. And typically, when it's time for you to, come out of certain friendships and relationships, they don't grow with you. The friendships and relationships don't grow with you. Sometimes they may become stronger. And if they, but typically they drift away. And if God doesn't tell you to stay and repair it, make it work, whatever, then it's a shift. It's time for you to come out of that. It's time for you to stop holding on to something longer than you should. You got to start trusting the seasons God puts you in. You're praying that God change your life. And when he starts to change your life, you don't want him to change you, though. Change everything but me, God. Change it. I'm not saying that, Lord. Change everything around me. Don't change me. Don't take certain people out of my life because I want them forever. But they ain't supposed to go forward with you. And then as soon as he start taking these people out of your life, you don't want it no more. You run back, and that's how you end up staying longer than you should. Because you end up holding on because you want what you want, not what God wants. And just be honest with yourself. Okay? All right, so your friendships and relationships start to shift. Sorry, y'all, about the noise. Friendships and relationships start to shift. But you got to start trusting God with every aspect of your life. When you put God first, you really do worry and stress less. It's not just a cliche saying. Start putting God first and allow him to select your friends. Allow him to put the right people in your life. Allow him to help you with the relationships you're supposed to have. That'll help you stop being in friendships and relationships longer than you should. All right, next point. Number 4, when you know it's time for you to move forward or to stay. Doors start opening and closing. Doors start opening and closing. A clear indication that it's time for you to enter into a new season. It's time for you to come out of being in a place too long is the opening and closing of certain doors. When if you got a job, things start to go left at the job, or, something that, whatever, like, I don't know, something you were doing, all of a sudden the doors start to close. The doors start to close. But then up ahead, it's a new opportunity that comes open for you. That's how you know it's time for you to let go of what was. And I'm glad I just read that, because even with jobs, we hold on to jobs longer than we should, thinking that it's stability. Be miserable as all get out at a job, and you think it's stability. I ain't saying go quit your job, but I'm an advocate of doing things that you enjoy. We stay at these jobs longer than we should because it's a check. And God really like, I'm your provider. I will make a way out of no way. You need to lean into me, trust me. And then again, we pray these prayers. God, take me to another level. Elevate my finances, elevate my business, whatever. We pray these prayers. And when God starts to answer, he's like, all right, I want you to leave your job. You like, nope, I'm good. I don't want to elevate that bad, God. I'm good. I'm good. Nah, how you gonna close the door at this job? This is my source of income. When in reality, God is your source. Well, I'm closing the door at the job because you said you wanted to go higher. And now I'm trying to get you higher, but you don't really want it. So here you go, back into that job, that space, that place, that time, that relationship, holding on to something, being in a place longer than you should. Because you don't really want it. You pray for it, but you don't really want it. Stop praying for things that you ain't willing to do, that you ain't willing to put in the work to do. You don't really want it. Relationship, I mean, your doors start to close, and we focus on the doors that's closing more than we do the doors that's open. Every time God removes, he always replaces. Every single time. And he replaces it with something better. Every time. But you got to stop focusing on what you've been holding on to too long anyway, so you can move forward to what God got for you. You're holding on too long, and you stuck in that space because it got a tie. It's connected to you, holding you back. And you steady letting it. You steady letting it. You see the doors are shutting. Your money start running low. You see the doors are shutting and your money starts running low. Things just start going awry. So you know that the doors are closing. You know it. You feel it. You know it. And you still hold on. You still hold on. When it's time for you to move forward, you got to start recognizing these things. You got to start recognizing these things so that you can stop holding on to stuff, people, things, environments, whatever, longer than you should. You got to start looking at what it is that God is telling you. And you say he ain't talking. He talking very, very clearly. You just ain't listening because it ain't what you want to hear. You don't want him to answer you, God, don't take my job away. Don't take my job away. But I want you to elevate me and take me higher in you. But don't take this person out of my life, God. Don't take my best friend. Don't take my boyfriend. Then you wonder is why God ain't talking. It ain't that he ain't talking. You just ain't listening. You ain't doing what he's telling you to do. You'd rather hold on to something longer than you should versus following God. When he got something so much greater that you really should be holding on to. Anyway, I'm sorry. Listen, all right, so another sign that God is moving you in a new direction is that you start to, and I'm trying to be mindful of how I say this, you start to, I guess, have I don't even want to say fear, because fear is not of God. But you start to, I guess, be afraid. Same thing, right? But because you're afraid of change. You're afraid of moving forward. You're afraid of, because you can't see the next step. You don't necessarily know the next step. And you're afraid. And you feel it so strongly that you're supposed to take a step, but you don't know it, so you stay. You hold on to that place longer than you should because you don't know what's next. But I tell you one thing, what you stand in a place longer than you should, I mean, you may know you do know what's coming next. It's what you already experienced. So fear may be a sign that you don't trust God, right? Especially when he's transitioning you. When he's calling you higher and he's calling you to another level and telling you to move forward and let go of what you've been holding on to, you may start to become afraid. But you got to learn to push past those fears. You got to learn to push forward regardless. You got to learn to do what God is telling you to do. Allow your faith to be bigger than your fear. You can't pray in confidence, but then move in fear. You got to start allowing your faith to be bigger than your fear. I can't say that I don't even like to use the word fear. And I'm just being honest because I know fear is not of God. However, I know when God is calling me to another season or calling me to another level and telling me to let go of something that I've gotten comfortable in, I do have doubts. I have doubts about my abilities. I have doubts about, that next step. I have doubts. And every new level, you're going to have the doubts. Every new level requires you to become a new person. So, but I face those doubts. I push past those doubts because I know that whatever God is calling me to is better than where I am. Wherever God wants me to go is better than where I am. So I'm okay pushing past it. And you got to start becoming okay pushing past it. Because the word says, don't be afraid, just believe. I forget what verse it is, but it's one of my scriptures in my prayer closet. Don't be afraid, just believe. God said, be strong and courageous. Don't be frightened or dismayed. For the Lord God is with you wherever you go. For the Lord God is with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. You got to learn to start building your faith muscle. God will intentionally put you in a space that makes you uncomfortable just so you can depend on him. God will intentionally put you in a space of isolation so you have no one else but him. In this season, I don't have nobody else but God. It's just me and God. And I'm like, every day I tell God, listen, you got to come through or you got to come through because you all I got. But he intentionally put me in that space so that I can depend on him. So he can be all that I have. So I can grow my faith. You got to get to that place because I know where God's taking me is better than where I am. And instead of, because I don't want to keep staying in the place where I am. It ain't bad. I live a pretty good life, to be clear, right? However, I want to go higher. I want to elevate. I want to grow. I'm tired of being in places too long that I don't belong. I'm sick of that. I've been there, done that, over it. So build up your faith muscle. God is intentionally trying to move you in a direction. He's intentionally moving you forward towards something or someone and things that are better from where you are now and putting you in places so you can develop your faith. So you can come out of spaces that you've been in too long that you don't belong. I don't even know what point I'm on, but we're going to go on to the next one, okay? So the next thing you need to know is how you know when God is telling you to go forward is you start receiving confirmations. You start receiving confirmations from God. Confirmations and peace that come with his confirmations. God makes it clear. He makes it like clear, crystal clear that he's moving you forward. You feel it. If you like me, I mean, I have visions, I have dreams, I feel it in my spirit, I hear God's voice clearly. I know when it's time. And typically you feel it before it, like when the season is coming, you feel it. You just know. You know it's a shift. You know it's time for something different. You know it's time to let certain things go. You feel it. You feel it. in your soul. You might not hear God's voice. You might not see the visions. You might not have dreams, but you feel it. You know when it's time. The confirmation start. That's your confirmation. And it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. You have a confirmation constantly. When God told me to leave my job, he first told me to leave my job. This was 2017, I think. God told me to leave my job. And I heard it clear, crystal clear. And I was just like, I'm the only one taking care of my house. Like, I got 2 kids. I got a whole house. Like, what you talking about? And I stayed in prayer because I was just like, I don't know. Like, I know I heard God, but did I really hear God? You know, we get like that sometimes. And clear. It became so clear. The confirmations came like every single day. Every day. And they got louder, stronger, louder, stronger. And I just kept feeling a pulling. I felt it in my soul that I was supposed to go. And I just kept feeling it. And I just knew. I knew. I just got these confirmations. It was just clear. I knew God was calling me into a new season and a new level. So, you know, I put up a post the other day and I said, stop letting people make you think your discernment is off. You know what God said. You know exactly what he said. You know exactly what he said. You stop being disobedient to what he said. Listen to those confirmations, right? God is calling you higher. He has a purpose. You were created with a purpose, for a purpose. And you might get confirmations from different ways. This might be confirmation for you. This might be confirmation. You might hear a message from the pastor. There might be confirmation. You might hear something you just prayed about, and all of a sudden you hear a song that speaks to your soul. That might be confirmation for you. You got to learn how God speaks, because it's not always an audible voice. And it could be confirmation. So he's giving you confirmations. You start feeling these urgings and you just know. You know it's a shift. You know when it's time. You know when it's time to let it go. You know when it's time to walk away. You know when it's time to leave things behind. You know, right? And God, of course, gives confirmation through his word, and through people. You get confirmation through people as well. So you start getting confirmations, and that's another way you know that God is calling you higher, because you feel it. You feel a pulling. You feel an urging through your soul and your spirit, right? And lastly, is to know that God is telling you to come out of a season or come out of a place that you've been in too long. Is you sense a pressing, which is similar to what I just said. You sense a pressing in your spirit, calling you away from your current place. You sense you feel it. Like, it's no other way I can explain it. You feel it. You just know it's a pressing. It's like an urgency. And God, like, when God calls you, he's going to continue to call. He's not going to stop calling you until you answer. But it becomes like an urgency on your spirit. It becomes an urgency. You think about it. You talk about it. You like, I wonder, what should I do? God called me to, should I leave my job? But I really feel like I should. You really start having these conversations. Like, I'm really feeling like I need to leave my job. And I'm talking about saying leave my job because that's how I felt. I was legit in that space, and I was like, I don't know, like, what steps I'm supposed to take, but I really believe I'm supposed to leave my job. And I was just confused. Not even confused, I lied, but it was like unsure. Like, I wasn't sure as to what my next steps were, but I felt it so strong in my spirit that I was supposed to walk away from that job. And the thing is, answers start to come when you walk away. The more obedient you are, and the sooner you listen to God and what he's telling you to do, and you come out of situations, places, things, whatever, in relationships, friendships, whatever, when God tell you to, it's like he starts to bless you with the stuff that you're supposed to have. He blesses you with the friendships you're supposed to have. He blesses you with relationships that's supposed to be in your life. He blesses you with opportunities you're supposed to have. He blesses you with I don't even know what I was going to say, but the closed doors, he blesses you with open doors that's just bigger than stuff that you never thought of, never even imagined. The sooner you be obedient and walk out of that season, walk out of that place that you've been in too long. When you feeling this calling, and if God, calling you, into ministry, right? You'll start feeling like, how can I serve other people? How can I help other people? How can I help build God's kingdom? How can I help build God's kingdom? And even if he's not calling you to ministry, whatever he's calling you to do, it's funny that I'm doing this live, because just this morning I did a reel that said, whatever God calling you to do, do it. Do it. Whatever it is, go and do it. So whatever you feeling is in your spirit, because like I said, God gonna keep calling you until you answer. He's going to keep calling you until you answer. You may want to stay in that relationship. You may want to stay in that friendship. You may want to stay in the situation. You may want to stay at that job. But I promise you, what God has for you is so much bigger. Have you ever seen the meme where it's a little girl supposedly talking to Jesus, and Jesus has this huge teddy bear behind him, and she has this little one in her hand, and he's like, just give me that one, and she's like, no, I don't want to let it go, it's all I have, and he's like, but I have something so much better. The meme doesn't say all of that, but you can see it in the picture, right? That's how we are in life. We holding on to this little bitty teddy bear. We holding on to this little bitty teddy bear. Matter of fact, I got a better example. We holding on. This ain't necessarily. I wish I had a smaller bottle of water, but we holding on to this little bitty teddy bear, right? Holding on to the little bitty bottle of water. And God is like, but I got something so much bigger. So much bigger. But I want to keep holding on to this is my favorite. And we hold on to it, and we hold on to it, and we hold on to it, and we hold on to it longer than we're supposed to, longer than we should. And the whole time, God is like, but I got something so much bigger and so much better. And guess what happens? You holding on to this. God is like, okay, but I got something so much bigger, so much better. I got some, he ain't gonna keep calling your name to say, hey, Samantha, I got something for you. Got something for you, Samantha. Come over here. No, he wants you to come get it. Go get it. So whatever God calling you to do, go get it. And you know what it is. You know what it is. Even if you don't know your purpose just yet, you know what you have a feeling. You know what you feel. You know in some way, shape, form, or fashion, an area that God may be leading you to. Just start in the area. He'll lead you to the exacts when you just take the first step and just start. Just do it. You got a calling on your life. God ain't called you to keep sitting on your gifts. God did not call you to keep sitting on your potential. God did not create you to just be stagnant in life. God didn't create you to stay in the same place doing the same thing all the time. You may go to another job, but you're doing the same job at another place. You get in another relationship, you with the same soul you was just with, but got a different face. You get into another friendship, your friends holding you down the same way the other ones were too. God did not put you here on this earth for you to stay in that place. You know what God's telling you to do. Go and do it. And stop being scared. Stop letting your fear control your life. Stop letting your fear be stronger than your faith. So, anyway, that's how you know. Those are just a few things of how you know when God is telling you to go to another level. God is calling you higher. And trying to get you out of a place of being long where you don't belong. All right. So I hope this message touched somebody. It touched me. This was good for me. Like, I really do these Wednesday wisdoms for you all and to feed wisdom into you. But listen, I be talking to myself sometimes. So if you know God telling you to leave, telling you to get out of that relationship, telling you to get out of that situation, get out of that job, get out of that, move away from your family, get out of that environment, go. God always know better than you do. And I promise you, you take the first step, I promise you, he gonna always meet you on the other side. Always. All you gotta do is take the first step. Stop being afraid and holding on to something that ain't of God, that ain't helping you grow in God, that ain't elevating you, when God got something that will. You stand in places longer than you should, and you blocking your blessings, you hindering your blessings, and you blocking the life God has for you. The prayers that you want answered so badly, he answered them. You just got to listen. All right. So I hope y'all enjoyed this. I am live every Wednesday, 6:30 Central Standard Time. So if you got a few questions, I'll answer. I only have like a 6% on my battery, so I can't talk long. Look, being long where I don't belong. But I can't say I don't belong here, because I believe, somebody's soul was touched. But anyway, thank you, Island Beauty. Oh my God, girl, I love that you take notes. Y'all need to take notes from her. Take notes from Island Beauty. I always tell you, have your pen and have your paper, because I'm going to give you some good nuggets, stuff that you can use to help you come out of these places and stop being stuck in life. So anyway, if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, it is I'm Samantha J. West on YouTube. You can also, if you want to sow a seed into my ministry, I would greatly appreciate it. If not, it's no worries. But if you want to, my Cash App is right there. It's Samantha J. West on Cash App. If you want to sow a different way, just let me know. I can tell you that as well. But I appreciate you guys. Like I said, I'm here every Wednesday, 6:30 Central Standard Time. The live will be saved. It'll be on my Instagram page. I will also upload it to my YouTube page as well. Make sure you share it out with someone who needs the message. Tag a friend who needed this message. If you need it, save it so you can watch it again and again and again until it's rooted in your head. Okay? I just want to make sure you all are blessed with wisdom. I ask God to increase my wisdom so I can give you more of what he gives to me. Okay? So on that note, hardships, journeys. Thank you. I love that. She said she writes down everything from my Instagram post. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I just love the fact that you all are listening. And however I can help, I just want to be able to help as much as I can. Island Beauty, every week, I leave your life with so much wisdom. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. But anyway, I told y'all I wasn't going to be here long. Here I am going on almost 2 hours. But I be trying to get y'all the information, right? I want you to grow. I don't want to be the only one successful out of my circle. I love y'all. And I want y'all to be successful too. I want you to come out these chains, these mental chains and these strongholds that the devil got on you. I want you to get it off your life. But anyway, so like I said, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube, Samantha J. West. If you want to pour into my ministry, I would greatly appreciate it. My Cash App, Samantha J. West. Tag a friend, share it with a friend, save the video, whatever you feel like you need. It'll be saved on my page. And I love you guys to life. Yes, I stayed longer than I should have. I did. Well, I'm so glad. I think Shamira, I probably said your name wrong, but thank you for joining. I'm so glad you joined the first time. Make sure you follow. But I'll be back next Wednesday, y'all. Wednesday, 6:30 Central Standard Time. And never know what I might be talking about, so you make sure you want to join in. Love y'all. Bye.